Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of AGT Time. I'm Jay Bach, along with
AGT Commenter is here.
AGT Commenter and our very special guest, Christian Stoinev. Hello, Christian.
How's it going, Jay? Thanks for having me. I can tell you guys watched the show because you got my last name right.
Yes. Well, Jerry Springer didn't the first time he tried on season 2. I think he went with Stoinev.
Not bad, I guess.
But Jerry's always had a little bit of a flair for the dramatic. So I think that's probably why he went with a little bit more of a flair on Stoinev.
Yeah.
But I know I'm happy that you're here and we're excited to talk to you.
Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, no, I'm pumped to be here as well. Excited to talk a little bit about AGT.
So,
Awesome.
Cody and I have been doing a rewatch. We started at rewatching season 1, and we were surprised to see you on season 2 as just a child back then.
Yes, I didn't even recognize you, Christian.
Yeah, so it's funny, you guys tagged me on Twitter, and I listened to that bit of it, and it brought back some memories of the tight little pants and funny circus outfits and all that stuff. So good times. Although I will say that the second time around on AGT was a whole lot more fun for me, and I guess a better representation at that point of myself, as I was able to, like you guys actually said, pretty much grow into my own by that point.
Yeah, we are going to be posting a video of this podcast on YouTube. So if you want to see Christian with a shirt on, you can pull up the YouTube video for us. But Christian, maybe let's start at the beginning. Tell us kind of, how did you end up on Got Talent season 2, and anything behind the scenes that we should know, any good stories from that season?
Well, funny thing is that now I live here in Las Vegas, and my run on AGT that season ended here in Las Vegas. I made it to the callback. Obviously, there's way more story stuff from prior to the show, which we could get into if you guys choose to. But talking specifically about my experience on the show that season, the audition was out in LA, and so flew out there. And all I remember was there was this guy named Alex Mooney. I'm almost certain that was his name. And he like broke pencils with his butt. And people now maybe won't really remember that, but since you guys just probably rewatched that episode not too long ago, I mean, you guys can help me out, because I'm pretty sure that's what he did, right?
Yes.
If you guys remember.
I don't remember the name, but I definitely remember the talent.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he broke pencils with his butt, and I remember being like, what is going on? So strange times. But when you do these shows, and even now, obviously, as a more polished older performer, you never go into it, you don't want to go into it even with the expectation of I'm gonna make it or whatever, because you just never know, and you don't want to take the opportunities for granted. So, but Alex was cool. I remember me and him had a good vibe, but there was definitely in my head, even as a 13-year-old, I was like, all right, if he gets through and I don't get through, something's going on here. So that was funny. But anyway, obviously the audition was great. And then we made it to the callbacks, which were here in Las Vegas. And at the time, we were touring, my family and I were touring with the Big Apple Circus. And we were in Queens, New York, I remember, and we went to practice. And so we had, obviously, Scooby. And then we also had a younger pup at the time named Prince. So we brought, we would bring them to practice, and we would bring Prince as well. And I was already warming up and getting ready for practice, and my mom was going to bring the boys over, and Prince kind of got out. When you're in a circus, like I said, if you guys wanted to touch on this, we could talk about the circus upbringing, but we live in a trailer, and it has the little netting door that's for mosquitoes not to get in. And Prince opened his door and ran outside and went and started barking at this huge dog. And the huge dog then also opened his screen door and came out after Prince. And then Scooby ran out to protect Prince. And it was kind of like a little dog brawl, except the big dog obviously had a huge advantage. And in that little dog brawl, essentially, like my mom told me later, the big dog pretty much put Prince like in his whole mouth. And then Scooby was like barking at him, and then he dropped Prince and went after Scooby. So he got Scooby. So Prince somehow came out with no issues, but Scooby got bit on the side of his leg. And I remember it was a weekend, because right away, we rushed him to, there was a vet that was actually walking distance from there. We were performing near Cunningham Park. So we ran over to the vet with Scooby, and luckily this vet was just closing up and saw that Scooby was bleeding, and it was pretty bad. I remember seeing, like, you could almost see, like, it was a pretty bad wound. So this awesome vet took care of Scooby right then and there, and was just like, hey, if there's blood in his urine over the next couple of days, that's really bad news, and we might have to put him down. And it was a really scary time. And then I remember the whole next day, he was so out of it. Scooby just like wasn't moving. So we were like, dang, like, what is going on? And obviously hoping that it wouldn't be bad news. And the day after that, it was like a switch. He was back to being normal Scooby. It was very weird. Maybe it was just like all the drugs in his body from like the surgery and stuff. But at that time, obviously, we were about to fly out to Vegas. And so Scooby was injured. And so, we came out here, and I was 14. So I really didn't have that many handstand tricks by myself that,
Right.
could kind of compete with grown adults at that big stage. So, I just did what I could. And I remember I nailed it. Like, as far as the tricks went, I hit all my tricks and stuff. But clearly, as we know, the act is not the same if it's not for, Scooby and now the other pups that have taken over. So that's where my run came to an end. And, but I just remember being out here in Vegas as a 13-year-old with my mom, and walking the streets and avoiding, those people out there that are giving their business cards, I should say, and that being awkward, and being by Planet Hollywood. And so now when I walk by it, it's funny, because I'll remember, I'm like, man, this is the theater where I first like performed here in Vegas. So,
the old saying is, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. But it sounds like this was pretty much about the size of the dog.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
It's
if
kind
that
of
applies to-
it's a little bit of an indictment on that old adage, I think, because it sounds like just this dog was so big that it won. My question is, and so in that performance where you weren't able to use Scooby on season 2, Scooby was there watching on stage, and they put him just on a metal folding chair, and they didn't give him like a nice comfy chair. Me and Cody, we already recorded a portion where we kind of talked about your performances, and we were flabbergasted by the treatment that they did not roll out the red carpet for Scooby in that moment.
The crazy thing is too that, through the years of me performing with the Chihuahuas are actually the divas in the act. And so it is I don't know how that happened. I don't know how, Scooby didn't say anything, because that's not acceptable for them. Yeah.
So season 2, obviously your run gets cut short, and it's probably is because of Scooby. But what's the thought process for you 7 years later, going, I'm going to try it again? And how do you come to that
talk
conclusion?
About season 9, I want to stop real quick.
Okay.
Did you first seek out America's Got Talent, or did America's Got Talent know about you and find you?
So I want to be like, don't quote me on this, but obviously it's me speaking here.
We're going to quote you, just so you know.
It's fine. It's fine. Well, I was so young that at the time it was pretty much my parents doing all the emailing and stuff. So I want to say that my parents had to be the ones reaching out, because I really wasn't, out there yet. So I think my parents must have sent my video, and they must have liked it, and then reached back out to my parents for me to go out there and do the audition and all that. That's just my guess, though, because like I said, I was so young that it was almost like my parents were like my managers, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my kind of a two-parter of what's the thought process and kind of coming to the decision that I want to go back on 7 years later, and then did they like, oh, hey, we've seen you before, like we know this name? How did that all go when you did decide to make another run at it?
So the funny thing is that when I went for the season 9, it was actually my 3rd time being on it.
Oh, wow.
because the second time was actually, so I went to college after we were with Big Apple Circus. I graduated high school. I actually went to college at Illinois State University.
Redbirds, go Redbirds.
Yep, Redbirds. And they have a circus program there.
Hmm.
And so I was pretty much recruited to go be a part of the circus program. So my senior year, which would have been AGT season 8, probably, we went as they first. AGT at that point, I think, had reached out to me about if I was interested in coming back, because at that point, I kind of was a little more grown up, and I had done a couple circus festivals and things like this. And so, but I remember having to make the decision of whether going back alone or going back with the circus program, because I didn't want to be in competition with the circus program. And I also don't think that was possible. My memory's a little bit blurred there, but I obviously decided to go with the circus program. It was our senior year. And I remember it was right before we went on, it was like during spring break when we went to St. Louis to do the audition. And it was just awesome, man. That was such a different and fulfilling feeling. We got through, we got the yeses that we needed, but we never went actually back to the next round. It's just kind of when they weed acts out, like within everything. So, but I remember we went and we did our performance, and it's just different. You're around your peers, and it was like probably 10 of us that did this performance. And then from there we were like on a high, just excited that we got through. And it's a little bit different, when I'm with my parents who are so experienced in the circus world when I was younger than me as a little bit older, having that experience. And it being really an act by myself with the Chihuahua is not that like, who do you hug on the stage kind of feeling, and when I went with the group, it was just awesome. It was I remember also because it was kind of intense. It was one of those like, I think we needed like the yes from the last judge, and it was like, I don't know, guys, I guess I'll give you the yes. And then we just like exploded in emotion. Like, it was just awesome. So that was actually my second time, but then I graduated.
Can I ask another question about that?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the Wikipedia article, and it says that was season 7. That you were with the Gamma Phi Circus.
So it was a junior year, maybe. They're probably my junior year, I guess. Yeah.
So whatever. We all went through college and had the lack of sleep and everything else that goes along with it. So you're forgiven.
Yeah.
But,
thank you.
Were you performing with one of your Chihuahuas in that?
No, that was just with the group. Yeah.
Just doing the hand balancing, or were you doing any other?
I did.
circus?
No, I did other stuff. I actually did like a Russian swing, which is this like huge swing thing, like a big seesaw. Not like a seesaw, like a swing. Yeah, essentially it's just a swing, and one person's pushing on one side, and you're on the front of that swing, and they push you, and then you flip on the other side. And so I learned how to do that in college at that program, and that's what we did there. And it was kind of, since we were the circus program that did a little bit of everything, I did do like one handstand trick on my stand, but it was just like me doing one trick, and as my trick was ending, somebody else did something juggling, or somebody else did something else. And like, it was just like quick hitters of a little bit of everything that we could do.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, you come back for season 9, technically third time back now. So you've been doing this. You've done this 4 separate times when you count champions. That's insane. You really love this show.
There's a running joke amongst my friends that because I've done AGT. We went to Germany, and we had the Germany one. Italy, which you just came back from. So we're like, all right, we did Britain's Got Talent. So we're like, A, B, we got to do Cameroon at some point.
He's got to hit the alphabet.
Possibly Denmark. Yeah. So we're just going through them all.
So that first audition, season 9, out in front of the judges, you do the trick that I think a lot of people remember you by, that didn't, at least the trick that didn't involve the dog, that's most memorable, where you have your finger in the bottle and you're balancing on that. Is that one that you cooked up for the show, or was that one you've been doing for a long time? Because it was an unbelievable trick.
Well, college can teach you a thing or two, especially at the parties,
You were balancing on bottles at parties, is what you're telling me?
You never know, man. No, I'm kidding. No, it's actually before I had the idea of doing it on the bottle, I used to do that trick on a candle holder. So my dad like decked out this like candle holder that held like 4 different candles. Mm-hmm. And so I used to do it on that. And then the bottle idea came about, and it's a trick that there's a guy named Eunice who used to do it like so many years ago, I guess, in the circus world, and my parents are the ones that told me about it. And but it is one that now I don't do that often because of a couple reasons. One, it could be very much overlooked sometimes because it's kind of such a small trick. So if you're doing it in a big space, people might not really realize what you're doing, and so, and also obviously just for wear and tear stuff. But it's like it was something that I remember going into that audition. AGT really wanted me to bring Scooby, obviously, but I kind of stuck to my guns. I will say, as a, I guess, quote unquote, negotiator, that was one of my proudest moments because fresh out of college, and you're dealing, essentially, I guess, not dealing, but talking to AGT people, and they're like, hey, yeah, we like your routine, like, we'd love to have you, the stuff with the dog is awesome. But then, they're like, do you know what you have planned? And I was like, yeah, well, for the audition, I'm just planning on going alone. And they were like, oh, well, we really like the stuff that you do with the dog. But I was very set on, I get it, but I really just trust myself to, it was kind of strategy, obviously.
What was the strategy there? Was it to save something to have a little bit more later?
Yeah, absolutely. So the strategy was exactly that. It was like, you know what? And I had done a couple shows because when I was in college, I didn't have Scooby with me because obviously living, whether it was in the dorms or after in a college apartment. So essentially I learned, some stuff alone and did a couple gigs here and there without the Chihuahua. So I was like, you know what, I could go and audition by myself. And even if people were like, there's been a lot of hand balancers here before. And, you'd have a way better chance of advancing if you had the Chihuahua. I was like, there's also been a lot of singers here before, and I bet you a lot of singers are still going to get through. So I'll take my chances. And
not all of them have a bottle to stick their finger in and balance on.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? And I mean, aside from the tricks themselves, the one thing that I will say about me as a performer that I hope people enjoy as much as I guess I try to convey is my personality, and whether that's through music that I use or whatever, or the types of tricks that I do. That's something that I've kind of enjoyed, that I've been able to maybe try to stand out, and make my own, add my own flavor to it. So that was the strategy. It was like, you know what, I'm going to do this alone. If I happen to get through, then great. Then I'll reveal Scooby. That'll give me an advantage. And even with Scooby in the judgment week, I still held back. I was like, no, I trust that the surprise factor of the dog and me doing this stuff with the dog is going to, kind of like blow the judges away, and they're going to want to see more. So I'll hold off a little. And really, it was like my whole goal was kind of to make it to the live show. So I knew I had to get through 2 to get to the 3rd show.
Right.
Because I knew once you got to the 3rd show, that's when, like I said, I was like, I hope and trust that by then my personality, people maybe start getting to know you a little bit. They've seen you on 3 different episodes and have the backstory. And, I think that's a strength of mine, is that I am like a pretty personable person. And I'm pretty upfront with stuff. So I felt like that would be an advantage. And then once we got through that first live show, which I'm sure we'll probably touch upon, but after that, then I was kind of screwed, because then I was like, all right, well, I didn't plan for this, and now I've kind of played all my cards. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have questions at that point, but if not, we can continue. But
for sure. So like, back, that audition, it goes really well. You get all the judges on your feet without the dog. What was your expectation? I should do this. What do you remember about that? And was it incredible with the response you got at that performance?
Yeah, it was a very self-fulfilling moment, because I don't get many of those, obviously, as Christian, because everywhere I go, it's Christian and Scooby. So, and that's okay. I know that the dog's going to upstage me. And that's why usually I get my tricks out of the way early, because once they see the dog, nobody wants to see just me anymore. So I'm very aware of that. So being there and doing that audition alone, and getting a standing ovation and the judges totally loving it and the 4 yeses. It was a very gave me almost that confidence where it was just like, all right, this whole time I've obviously understood and realized how special Scooby is to the act and that he is practically the act, but it was like, hey, you're not that bad either. So it was kind of one of those moments for me. I remember that for sure. And I was in LA and I was there by myself, and it was one of those also probably like a peel away moment from, not in a bad way, I'm just saying from my parents, because growing up, obviously my parents had a lot of influence, and even with the act, my parents had a lot of influence, and like, all right, after this move, you go over here and do this move. And this was the first time of me I didn't tell them even that I was going until like the day, I don't remember if it was the day before or when I came back that I told them, just because I wanted it to be my own thing,
So Judgment Week, you bring the dog out finally, and everybody, I think, who's it's pretty much just the judges there. I'm sure they're pumped to see the dog. And my question is, how do you train the dog to do this? Because it really is. Me and Cody, when we were talking about it, we couldn't believe, it's dumbfounding how you guys are able to do this together. Is it utilizing cues and music and stuff? How do you get Scooby to stay with it and actually do all these tricks? Because it's really incredible.
So, one of the things that the act, the way it got started was very random. I was practicing handstands just to do by myself. I really wanted a pet because we were traveling. And my parents were like, all right, we'll get a small pet though. And so we got obviously a small Chihuahua, easy to travel with. And when I would go practice, we would bring him with me. I'd teach him little tricks here and there. And one time a reporter came out to the site where we were at, and the story was supposed to be about the circus tent being set up and, how it takes 24 hours, whatever, for the tent to go up. And we were just practicing outside in the corner, kind of, broad daylight, and here comes this reporter, starts asking us questions. Next thing you know, we were the photo that actually was on this newspaper. So we were like, they saw me with the Chihuahua doing some tricks and they thought it was cool. So that's almost kind of what also really pushed this act to start, because it was like, hey, let's just keep it up, we have something. And Scooby learned this up and down paw trick that he does. And it would just be, the please thing. So that's the command. We literally will be like, say please, and he'll do that.
Okay.
So he would, anything, like whether we were eating at the table and he'd be doing it at, for whatever we were eating. And the act then kind of became like a copy and paste thing. So one of that trick where he does that on my back, for example, I was laying on the floor just watching TV, and he was laying on top of me while my dad was eating. And so he started doing the please thing while he was on top of me to get a treat, get my dad's dinner. And then my dad was like, oh, like that trick that you're practicing, that's the one with your arm like this, your back is flat. Like, why don't we try to see if he'll do it there while you're doing that? So it's almost like, copy and pasting two things. Right. And we tried it, and it looked awesome. And so it just kind of evolved. And the crazy thing with the dogs is just that, obviously, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Scooby, the OG Scooby, passed a few months ago.
Oh, okay.
And so
just now.
Yeah. So he was 17 years old. So he was up there. So actually right after that AGT season, maybe a year after, is when he retired. And then Percy took over the act. And then now we have a younger one named Milo, and Milo's kind of the up and coming little superstar. And he's
in the farm system, ready to rock.
Yeah. If you guys watch basketball, he's like the G League level.
He's in the G League. I was just gonna say that.
It's on his way. So he's, so he's learned the act now. And the best thing about working with them is just that I imagine, I'm not a parent, hopefully one day, but, I imagine parents would say this about their kids, is that they're all different personalities and they learn in different ways. And that's just exactly how it is with these guys. Like, Scooby was the ultimate performer, the greatest, it's still kind of tough to talk about, but the greatest memory with Scooby is actually that quarterfinals performance, where I'm wearing like the red pants and stuff, just because it was like, our, I would say, kind of like our best tricks. And it was like a big performance. It was live and everything just like rocked. And the crowd loved it. It was Radio City Music Hall. I've never been so nervous in my life. And to get that reaction and to get that, because even in the interview after with Nick Cannon, I feel like I made no sense whatsoever, but people kind of just got it, like in a way, because it's just like, there's no way to like, it's just like a relief of like, oh my God, like everything. And after Judgment Week, prior to that quarterfinals performance, you have like 3 months because, like the way the episodes are set up. And so those 3 months, you're literally just practicing for this 90 seconds. And so, even I remember right before it started, when the countdown was going on, because it's a live show, and they're like, all right, starting in 5, 4, 3. In my head, I remember saying like, this is everything you've prepared the last 3 months for. And it's almost like, don't mess it up. Like, it's almost like, that pressure. And so, sorry, I know I got sidetracked there, but just with the dogs, I'm just saying, with Scooby, then going to Percy, and then going to Milo, like Percy and Milo right now, who are the two that I pretty much perform with now, they're polar opposites. Like Percy is this delicate, like don't bother me type pup, and Milo's the complete opposite. He's like rough. He wants to play all the time. He'll jump off the couch where you're like, don't jump from there, kind of, and so training them is almost the same way, because with Milo, it's almost like I just play with him, and that's the thing with Percy. So Percy does this trick where he walks on the basketball. That Scooby never did that, and that just started because I remember I was at a gym, that circus gym back in Illinois State. I had a basketball and Percy kept like looking at it and stuff. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like he's very curious about this basketball. And I saw a kid like walking on the globe. And I was like, oh, let me put Percy on it. And he was like trying to stay on it. And it was like, oh, wow, like maybe he could get this. And he got that. And then with Milo, like I said, he'll play fetch nonstop, almost, like sometimes when you're like, dude, I don't want to play anymore. It's like that. And so he loves these little like plush like balls that I've gotten him. And so I was like, how can I think of a trick with him and this plush ball? And I bought him like a little sports pack, and it had like a little soccer ball, a football, and a basketball. And I had a little basketball hoop, like the ones that you'd have at an office that you just shoot.
Right.
And I was like, man, if I teach him to dunk, that'd be super sick. And that's how it is. And so now literally like anytime, and it's weird how he knows, because I'll let him play with like the football plush ball and the soccer ball plush ball, but the basketball one, he tears them because he wants to like make holes in them. So the basketball one, I'm like more careful with, and I've bought like 5 already from Amazon before, like I can't find them or something, because he just tears through them. So the basketball one, I'll like pull it out and he just goes crazy. He's like ready to play with it. And so, like I said, it's just different personalities, and it's just awesome to kind of, see them shine in their own way.
Yeah. So you get through the Judgment Week, you're on to the live shows. So you've been 5 performances on this show now total, between the other 2 times and now the 2 on here. No live shows yet though. You haven't been live. So this is the first time you're going to go live. How much different is it getting ready to go out on stage when it's live and there's millions and millions watching?
Very, very different. Just, just the pressure is just different. And also, like I said, just knowing like this performance was coming, everybody's watching, and I mean, I don't know if it's the elephant in the room, but working with animals, you have extra pressure, because people, I mean, they're not wrong.
Don't they always say don't work with animals or kids?
Yeah, I guess that is a saying. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's just tough. Like
the window.
Yeah, well, when their tail's wagging, what do you do? But so with with the dogs, there is that pressure, because you're like, man, if something goes wrong that like has nothing to do with the training, or has nothing, anything, literally, like it could be like a light bulb that freaks them out, and it comes on at the wrong time and it looks bad. You're gonna get everyone just assuming the worst. And it's hard to blame people, because that's true, there are bad animal trainers, and I'm not one of those people that's gonna sit, especially growing up in the circus, I get that question a lot. And it's like, the reality is like, yeah, like we've in the circus community, we've seen people mistreat the animals. That happens. I'm not one of those people that's not going to be realistic. Like, nah, we've seen it happen. But the difference is, in the judgments that are thrown out there is that we like all just don't care. Because even one time when we were on that Big Apple Circus show, there was a lady that shall not be named that was training her animals, and she was mistreating them. We could hear the dogs crying, and guess what? We, the people of the circus, like called whoever it was. I was a young kid, but I remember there was like 10 of us out there and waiting for the people to come up because we reported her, because that's just not acceptable. And so,
right.
That's the part that kind of gets lost in those judgments from people. But, that's why for me, I'm like, I hope that I'm that example of like, hey, like, it could be the exact opposite. You could be working with your dog and could be like the most fun that they're having. And, I get that satisfaction with Percy because like I said, Percy never plays. Like he doesn't play fetch. He's like a don't bother me type dog. He'll literally lay on his bed all day if he could and just go out for bathroom breaks and come right back and lay there. And like, he's fine with that. But when we're performing, if you see through videos, whatever, his tail's wagging and he's like completely different. And it's just kind of like an awesome feeling. And so, but yeah, I mean, live shows, that pressure is there too. And so even now when I rewatch that live show, like obviously it was great, but sometimes I'm like, man, like that trick I did with Scooby all the way at the top, even though it was, I was very sure of it. You might be able to see if you rewatch it, but I had my dad on one side and Nick, who's my good friend, on the other side, and they're
not
sort
Nick
of
Cannon.
Not Nick Cannon, correct.
Okay.
And he's sort of there like spotting him to tell me like if he's fine, if he needs to sit a different way, like talking to me in case like if he wasn't good, then I wouldn't raise my legs, and it's just like you kind of just dodge the trick and you're like, all right, well, not right now. But you have all those safety measures there. But even still, sometimes when I watch that, I'm like, man, thank God, like that never like, no one like screamed and scared him or anything like that. Even though by that point, obviously, he's the professional. Scooby's done this so many times that that's super unlikely. But like I said, sometimes it's just like it could have nothing to do with the training or nothing to do with how you are with them, and it just looks bad, and people might jump to a conclusion. So, but aside from that. Yeah, a lot of pressure, man. Like when so many people are watching, and like I said, I'm also not great at handling those situations as far as, as much as I'm like, all right, just go out there and have fun with it. There's the other side of me that's like, man, if you mess up, like, what did you spend all those 3 months training for this moment just to lay an egg kind of thing? So
yeah,
it's hard.
So quarterfinals gets done and the judges are very complimentary. Howie says it's the best night ever in the history of AGT. Me and Cody, we were like, that seems a little bit. Quarterfinals is of a season's probably not the best night ever, but it certainly people were loving it. Howard said you were the best act of the night, and so you're on to the semifinals.
Here's my
there he is.
Oh, there he is.
You're gonna have to watch the video to see this, guys.
Yeah.
This is the slam dunker. So. Go ahead, sorry.
Yes, so you're on to the semifinals, and it starts off with the Top Gun theme, kind of fighter pilot thing. Was this your idea, or was this pitched to you by producers?
It was pitched to me. Funny thing is, when they pitched it, they were like, "All right, we're thinking about this Top Gun idea," and I was like, "What's Top Gun?" And they they all lost their minds, and they were like, "You've never seen Top Gun?" And I was like, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I've never seen it. And they're like, all right, you have to watch Top Gun. So then, and by that point, it's also another thing where I feel like a lot of performers don't really trust the producer sometimes because they think like, all right, no, you're not going to trust my ideas. But once you get on the show, you realize, hey, it's also their show. So they also wanted to look good. So after the quarterfinals, I kind of gained that trust in them. I was like, man, they made this background look super awesome. And, the music was a great choice that they had. And so doing all those things, kind of makes you build that trust. But for the Top Gun one, I was skeptical because like I said, I hadn't seen the movie. My homework was to watch the movie. I fell asleep halfway through the movie. I never finished
Come on. It's an awesome movie.
Yeah, I know, but I fell asleep. I was tired. I've heard great things though. I've heard great things. But anyway, so yeah, they pitched that, and then I was like, yeah, I trust you guys. I'll roll with it. And from there, then I just got to training. And like I said, after the quarterfinals, it was one of those things that I was like, man, what can I come up with here that that I haven't done? And, you know, touching on a different point, I feel like, also feel free to cut me off because I know I do that a lot. I'll go on
No problem.
But I think, you know, for us that are the variety acts, we face an extra challenge of sort of, you know, a singer that's like, let's say a opera singer, when they hear the opera song and they come back the next week, they're expecting the opera song, but a different song. It's not like they're like, oh, you sang opera last week. We kind of wanted a hip hop this time. You know, like that doesn't happen. You know, they respect what their strength is. It's like if you're a pop singer, whatever, country singer, whatever it may be. So with variety acts, it kind of sucks because you may be a hand balancer, but you know, you come back the next week and you do something that's completely different in the hand balancer field, but they'll be like, oh, that was kind of pretty much the same as last time. And you're like, it wasn't, but I don't blame you because obviously you might sing every day in the shower. So you can relate to a singer better than you can relate to someone doing handstands. Cause you
I don't do a ton of handstands lately. I got a back thing. I'd kill to be 100%, but
So I was just going to say, so for me, it was like, man, what can I do here? Because I'm kind of limited. And now from the quarterfinals to the semifinals, we only had 2 weeks. And so in those 2 weeks also, I remember I drove from Florida all the way back to Illinois to train back in my college there.
Okay.
So I could have my brother and my dad with me too, that's when I was spending those weeks. And I just did that like walk on the block thing with Scooby on my feet.
Sweet.
Yeah, which for me was like a super new trick. I hadn't done it. I trained it in 10 days. And that's why I went back up there to train with, you know, my brother and my dad, so they could be watching Scooby and talking to me through it and everything. And but yeah, man, the performance, that's probably my least favorite performance I've ever done when it comes to that. Because, you know, at the end too, we tried to do this little magic reveal thing with Percy just because.
Well, Scooby 2.
Scooby 2, yeah.
Scooby 2, yeah.
Yeah, which I feel like in my own comedic sense, I thought that was hilarious, but no one got it. So
I appreciate it. Really, I did.
I was like, it's Scooby 2, but it's Scooby also. Like, I feel like I had to explain it, and then you know that it's a bad joke if you have to explain it. So, but yeah, no. So at that point, though, you know, the little magic reveal didn't work, and if I remember correctly, for me, the magic reveal was because I wanted to start transitioning to Percy, because I was like, if somehow I get through here also, Scooby and I are kind of out of tricks. At least this gives me next round, I can do the basketball walk with Percy, which is a different trick. Plus at that point, you know, I did, honestly speaking, like I said, I'm pretty realistic. I felt maxed out, you know, like I was like, I don't know how, if I win this, it's going to be based on personality. Like so I was like, I need to start thinking about, you know, I had started doing halftime shows. So I was like, I'll do this trick there. So people that, you know, see me could be like, wow, that's a great trick that we could include in the halftime show. So it was more of like a, you know, little backstory with that trick. But yeah, that performance for me, I didn't like it.
Yeah. So the comments from the judges are interesting after that one. Because you kind of get mixed feedback. You get Howard kind of saying, hey, this is starting to feel overly dog act and we need to see more of you. And Heidi and some of the other ones like, well, I still like the dog idea. And ultimately you settle on the idea of, hey, let's sort of steer into this, the dog stealing the show thing for the next round. Was it frustrating for you kind of trying to figure out what people wanted out of this act for that next round?
It just, by that point, did feel almost like a moving target because, you know, some judges would say that. And then, you know, like even in the next round in the finals, I did more solo stuff. And they're like, I kind of missed the dogs. And so I was like, all right, well, you know, can't win here, you know? So, but yeah, it was just one of those things that it's TV, man. Like, so it was one of those things where I was like, I can't please everybody. Right. And I wish actually now I felt more strongly about that than I did then, because even though then you kind of know like, all right, not everyone's gonna, you know, I can't please everyone. You still hold on to that hope and you're like, all right, like, yeah, I'll do it this way or that, whatever. But yeah, it was one of those things that at that point I was like, all right, like I'm kind of, you know, like I said, as far as like tricks maxed out also in the fact that like you can't, it's kind of impossible to learn a brand new trick in the hand balancing field in 2 weeks. Like that's
Right.
impressive. And that's
Mhm.
different that people will like, you know, I mean, like I said, it's not a knock. People don't try handstands every day, so they don't know, you know, what it takes. But,
Sure.
you know, for example, it took me like a year just to learn a regular handstand. Then it took me like another year just to learn to like be on one arm for 20 seconds, if that's
Right.
the case, you know, and then from there, it takes you another, whatever, 2 years to learn to switch from one arm to the other arm. And that's 4 years already, you know, so it's a progression. And so it's kind of, you know, it's tough. So
Right.
yeah, by that point, it was just kind of like, all right, well, once they kind of didn't like the dog idea, which like I said, I also didn't like it. And one of the things that people always do ask me, even now with Percy and Milo, they're like, are you going to use both dogs? I kind of don't like using both dogs because I think what makes our act unique is that it's me and the dog, and I have my strengths and the dog does. And if you start putting 2 dogs in it, it kind of becomes a dog act. And, you know, there's loads of dog acts out there that are awesome. Like the Olate family is a great example, you know? So it's one of those things that I'm like, I'm not trying to be in the same category with the Olate family, with the Olate dogs.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to be in the same category with, you know, any other hand balancer. I want to be my own category as Christian and Scooby, you know, and that unique bond.
Right. So you do go to the top 12, and back then they do top 12 and then they cut it again to 6. So it's
Right.
not, it's kind of an odd way to do it.
Yeah.
I prefer how they do it now, where it's just a finale and it's the 10 or whatever. Was there any part of you that was like, were you like, this is incredible that I'm in the top 12 of America's Got Talent? Like, was that something that hit you, or were you kind of just like, hey, I got to try and figure out how to keep going here?
I remember sometimes you get stuck in the moment where you're, you know, just thinking too much that you don't even realize, you know, like, oh, this is pretty damn awesome. But after that performance in the semifinals with both dogs, I was sure I was out. I was so sure I was out. And I remember that Wednesday sitting there in the theater, and I have a video on my personal Facebook. It's still up there. And I already was like thanking everyone, and I put it up there. And I remember just being in the theater, and I was like kind of teary eyed. And I was like, man, this was a great experience. Like, it sucks that our performance didn't go as it could have been, but it's pretty awesome to be here. I was like, I'm going to miss everybody. And it's just, you know, this was such a great bond with everyone here. And the crew people were awesome. And, you know, so then you get through, and that's where that one, I feel like I just went, when it was me and Smoothini, and they, you know, it was like the Snapple save and they picked me. It was so like, whew, like that was like crazy swing of emotions, because you already want to prepare yourself for not making it. But there, it wasn't just preparing. I was pretty sure I wasn't making it. And so, you know, back at Illinois State University, they had like a watch party. So I knew people were gathering to watch it. And that kind of added pressure too. I was like, man, they're all going to watch it and be like, oh, he's out, you know? So that, I remember when I got you know, when Howie, I remember he was like, size does matter, you know, like Christian, Scooby, like that was such a, like, I immediately just thought of everyone back home that was watching it, and just like probably them like celebrating. And then afterwards, I got to see the video actually of them just jumping up in celebration when I got through. So it was very awesome. And so, but yeah, you don't, and I definitely, and I know it's people probably like, oh, that's what just you say no, whatever. But I promise you that during it, I didn't once think of like the $1 million prize, or it was like, oh my God, I have a 1 in 12 chance of winning America's Got Talent. It becomes so, you know, like Matt Franco, you know, spoiler alert, wins.
Hey,
wins.
Easy.
Yeah.
Hey, we haven't covered that season yet. Yeah, we haven't talked the whole season yet. So.
Yeah. You know, he wins that season. And, you know, Matt was someone that we were together in the quarterfinals. We were together in the same week of the semifinals. We obviously performed together in that top 12 finals. So, you know, like me and Matt and Miguel Dakota and these people, when it was like the other semifinals week, because we had to fly in the day of the previous semifinals performance. So like that night, we all text each other and we're like, hey, what are we watching tonight? And we would go into someone's room, we were staying in the same hotel, and I remember specifically, we got Chipotle and we all watched it, and it was just so cool. And it was like, you just became this family. Like it was,
Right.
me and Matt still are super cool. I've seen his show here, he's come to the show I was on in Vegas. Like
Wow.
it just, there's just those kind of bonds that you make, because when you're in it, you feel for everyone. You're like, you don't want to see anyone mess up, also because you're not competing for the same thing. Like if you're watching maybe gymnastics, maybe they're like doing the same skill, so they're like, dang, they're gonna judge us for the exact same skill,
Right.
like, so competitively you're probably like, oh, if they mess this up and I hit this, it's gonna look good. But with like what we do, you can't compare it. So when you see like Matt, you're just like, man, you can see, I remember like watching him, being nervous for him, and being like, oh my God, like, like it, just because you can see his hands shaking and you feel it. You're like, yo, I'm this nervous too. And you just kind of want everybody to do well, especially at that point in the competition, and just let, kind of like everyone says, let the chips fall where they may. And that's just really what it was. And, like I said, both the quarterfinal rounds and then the semifinal rounds too, one of the also immediate reactions you get is like, yes, like, because I remember I was pretty close friends with a couple of the Acro Army girls, and they ran over to hug me, and they're like, yeah, like you're staying, because we're like, nice, we have another week together to spend, like, to be here as friends and just enjoy this experience. And so there's a lot of that.
Sweet.
And at least for our season, I can't speak for the other seasons, but that's how it was.
Yeah. So we've had a couple guests from different seasons, and we had a season 12, Christian Gardino. He said he knew Darcy Lynn was going to win. They knew it. Ryan Niemiller mentioned
you're our second Christian to be on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Ryan Niemiller from season 14 said they knew it was Cody Lee's to win. Did you and kind of the other contestants, did you feel like this was Matt's season, that he had kind of by the horns and he was going to win this, or were you guys all kind of feeling like it was a pretty tight competition?
Honestly, I felt like it was a pretty tight competition, because there was also Smoothini. And so it was like, all right, the two magicians, like, they're both going kind of head, they built it up that way. And sometimes like they built me and like Andre Moraru, I think was his name, kind of us, the two hand balancers or whatever. Sure. But, for a while, like in the beginning, I could have sworn it was going to be Miguel Dakota, because he had like that, like, that like good looking guy that like the girls are going to heartthrob, and he was good. And so like, Miguel was awesome. And so it was hard, man, because also Emily West was really good. And Quintavious is like the little kid that's really powerful voice and really good. So, it was a tough season for us as competitors. Maybe other people were like, it's Matt for sure, and like, I'm not trying to like downplay Matt, obviously.
No,
That's awesome. But I just think that everyone was, really good. And I mean, I will say this, when Matt won, no one was like, what? How did Matt win?
Yeah.
Of course, right. Matt deserved it. Everyone was happy for Matt, so he nailed it too. Like the performance he had was awesome. So, it was just, I would say everyone was really, really, like really good.
Yeah. So top 12, you the performance, you do it, it's still a great performance. And then you do get this odd, hey, we kind of missed the dog thing. And it's like, okay, well now we're just like, how can I please you people? And unfortunately that is where it kind of ends for you that season. When you got eliminated, what was that like? That feeling of, was it more, it's a bummer because I don't get to be around everybody anymore, or that I don't have a chance to keep going to try and win?
More so a bummer that I couldn't be around everybody anymore, because I mean, like, and also I kind of knew, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, just the fact that I got through on such an emotional ride, like the round before, in a week's time. So, for me, I kind of was like, you know what, I'm just going to like, it was my chance to kind of do my own solo thing. And I mean, like I said, a lot of people don't know hand balancing, but believe it or not, for me, that was probably one of the actual, when it comes to like, it was like the least pressure I had in all the performances, but it was one of the hardest performances I had, just because hand balancing wise, I'm like upside down for like the whole pretty much minute and a half.
Yeah.
The hardest trick that I did was at the end, which usually I wouldn't do that, because you want to kind of give yourself that wiggle room. If I mess this up, I still have something else.
Is it the one where you jump and switch?
I jump and switch. Yeah. And then from there, I dropped on like one arm to here. And, that's all like strength. And after a minute and a half of being upside down, you're a little weaker, but the adrenaline at that point, like drove
Right.
it. Especially once I hit the switch, I knew once I hit the switch, like there's moments, and I'm probably pretty sure you can tell in the videos, like in the quarterfinals one, as soon as I grab Scooby, as soon as I come down from the handstand where he's on my feet and he transitions to my back, I feel like I get like a different smile, because I'm like, all right, like you did, like you're over that hurdle. But then
Right.
you're still like, don't get too confident though. Don't get too confident, like finish strong, And then in the semifinals, it's once I did the walk with him on my feet and I like got down from that, same thing. I was like, yes, like you can tell, like, I'm like, all right, like it's like that, like now finish strong and now enjoy the moment,
Mm-hmm.
And then the same thing with me. Once I hit the switch, the jump, it was like that right away. Cause I just knew, like, obviously, like the adrenaline's like, I'm like power at this point. And so, I kind of knew even in the results, like me and Quinn were super cool. And when I knew it was like me and him, we were like, hey, if we're on the stage, we're like, let's do a cool handshake, like we prepared, like, and I like knew like it was going to be like, obviously Quinn, like I thought he deserved it also, I wasn't bitter or anything. It was more of like a, man, this was awesome kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I didn't feel as bad too, because I was like, all right, at least all I'm missing is like 1 week with everyone,
Right.
as
Yeah.
opposed to 2 weeks if I would have gotten eliminated the week before. So
Sure. So you're on season 2, 7, and 9. Were there major differences that you look back and go, man, things changed a lot from season 2 to 7 to 9? Like, how different of a world are the AGT, from the very beginning, the early years to the middle years and stuff? How different was it?
Well, for me, if I compare the two, it's usually season 2 and 9. Like season 7 was almost just like a performance that we did with my friends, and so that one sticks out like on its own kind of level. So that one obviously just was a whole just a lot of fun. You're college kids, you're with your friends, it's awesome. So, but the other two, as far as AGT goes, I didn't get to the live shows that season 2, so
right.
I don't know what that was like, and production wise, and how big everything was, and so I definitely think that like season 9 just kind of holds like a special place for me, just as far as like the experience, the training, that, like I said, from Judgment Week, right after Judgment Week, there was 3 months until the quarterfinals, and those 3 months I actually had a contract in Florida, so I had moved to Florida to perform there at the Ringling Museum for that summer. And that summer, and including the week of the quarterfinal performance, there would be times, like, I'm not kidding, where I'm just like, so I'm either tired or like I already ran like 3 miles or whatever, because I was doing a lot of cardio and stuff. And I would be like, I hated myself for this, but it's also what made it so rewarding. I'd be like, come on, you could do a 4th mile. And you're just like, no, like, you're like, I'm done. Like, I've been here for an hour and a half just at the hotel gym. And then the little like thing on your shoulder will pop up and be like, if you mess up, you're going to look back at this and be like, dang, I didn't do that extra mile. So then you're like, oh, all right, dang it. And then you run that extra mile. And that happened all the time for those 3 months. I would be practicing, and I would be like, like usually I'll be like, all right, you have to hit like, let's say 2 in a row of this trick, whatever, 3 in a row of this trick. And then it'd be like, come on, one more. Pretend this is the performance. You have to do one more. And I'll be like, oh, you already did it. Because if you mess this one up, now you got to stay here another half hour to do 3 in a row again. And I'm like, well, if you mess it up, you're going to look back and be like, I should have done that. Or with stretching, it was the same. I hate stretching. That's like my least favorite thing. But it would be like, whatever. Like, and I don't even know how I would like, rationalize stretching. But it was like, if you mess up something, it's because you didn't stretch. And I was like, oh my God. So, I was really hard on myself with stuff like that. And, but, maybe that's one of the reasons why, like, most of the tricks went well, but I don't know. But yeah, it was kind of fun.
Jay, I'm sure you're chomping at the bit with some questions.
I've got a silly one that's been bouncing around in my head, and I'm not sure exactly how to pose this, but in season 2, you performed alongside the great Throdini, and you mentioned in season 9, you performed alongside Smoothini.
Yeah.
Wow. Wait,
I'm not sure there's a question here, but
remind me about Throwdini. Did he just throw knives?
yeah, the Reverend Doctor, the Great Throwdini, who
I don't
he
remember
threw
that
knives.
so well. I remember Kevin James. I remember Terry Fader because me and Kevin
yeah.
James were like on the same episode.
Okay.
So yeah,
But the Great Throwdini is just a relic of a memory, huh?
Yeah, you're the Eenies are just on your seasons. Whatever season you're on, we're gonna have the
maybe
Deenies of
maybe I'm years past my time. I could have performed alongside the Great Houdini.
Houdini. That's the only Eenie you're missing. That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm interested. You're obviously in great shape. Not a lot of people who do what you do who are in bad shape. What does the workout regimen look like? Because I'd have to imagine it's pretty intense.
Yeah. So actually, I definitely go to the gym and do a lot of, gym workouts, and then also practice as well. And it's kind of a know your body type training regime. I definitely hit the gym every day. My cardio to kind of keep, also I'm getting older. So now as a 29-year-old, lucky for me, my girlfriend is very conscious of my health. She'll be like, drink water. And I'm like, I hate water. Like, honestly, I don't drink water. I drink Propel or like, I don't know why. I just don't like
anything but plain water.
Yeah. I don't like regular water, but she'll be like, no, drink water. So I'm like, oh, okay. So, now, there you go. But now she's got me, so now I'll drink water. She's like, oh, almond milk. I'm like, almond milk? What's that?
Yeah.
But, so little things like that where she looks out for me. So that's been a big help. But also for me, just cardio wise, because, I don't have the cleanest diet. People usually are surprised by that.
Okay. But I thought maybe you were like all veggies.
Oh no. I love eating like bad stuff. Like McDonald's, I'll go to McDonald's all day. I even forgot that they had ice cream sundaes until like 3 weeks ago. I was like, they still have those?
Well, that's when the ice cream machine works.
And then but they don't give out the little peanuts anymore. So I was like, what's going on with this? But yeah, so little things like that. No, I'll allow myself to do all that stuff, but to allow myself to do that, I'm like, all right, you gotta like work out a lot. So like even this morning, it was supposed to be my day off because Mondays and Tuesdays were off. And I was like, I'm not doing anything, 3-mile run. So, The weather was nice outside. So I just did a 3-mile run. And my thing is usually burn 500 calories a day. That's like my goal. And it's not like a goal that I hope to reach. It's a goal that I need to reach. So like, I'm like, no. So this morning I ran and then I walked a little bit. Well, I ran a little bit extra to get to the 500, so I did like 550. So every day is 500 calories. And then obviously the weight training stuff. And, when we have shows and we're actually starting back up on a new show here in Vegas, that's when it gets a little bit harder to balance those because, I have to like bench on like a Monday morning so that by Wednesday evening, I'm not as sore because then, there's been shows where I'm like, oh my God, I'm screwed. I can't do this right now. My arms feel like, they're dead. So.
Right. Well, Michael Jordan used to bench press before games. So I don't know how he would do that. I feel like that would really be miserable to play a game right after.
I've asked other performers who, obviously work out a lot, if it ever bothers them. And they're like, I'm used to it. So me, I'm like, all right, maybe my body is going to get used to it. And, it's true though. The more time has passed, the more I still go work out before, but benching is the only thing that I can't really do because when my chest is sore, then I'm kind of, it really throws everything off. But the other workouts I've been able to do even with having shows. But maybe it's an age thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Tell me a little bit about the trajectory from like season 9 and making that far and kind of the name recognition and like how your career went from the end of AGT to like champions and on to what you're doing now. Like what do you do now and what have you done between then and now?
Yeah. All right. Well, stop me when you guys want, because so yeah, no, obviously. So first and foremost, my biggest love probably in the world is basketball. A lot of people might not know that.
Who's the jersey behind you, by the way?
Oh, those are mine.
Oh, those are yours, your own.
Oh,
Those
wow.
are from performances. So these are from like meaningful performances I've had. So I grew up in New York, so that's when I performed at the Garden.
Wow.
Which actually, coincidence, Scooby's first NBA performance at the Garden, Percy's first NBA performance also at the Garden.
Wow.
But not Milo. He did a quarter break at the Warriors. So.
He didn't.
Right.
Wow. That's not
Toronto.
either.
Toronto is my favorite NBA team, so got to perform there.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then
we finally got a title. And then the Clippers. I just like the Clippers jersey. That one is but the Clippers, they were always super nice to me there. So, but anyway, so basketball, huge basketball guy. So once I was graduating from college, I had seen some halftime performances, most notably David and Danya, which unfortunately you guys might have heard David actually passed away earlier this year because of COVID, apparently. So
yeah, we talked about them when we covered season 1.
Okay. So anyway, so from there I saw that and I was like, okay, like I want to do that too. So I just started, being a hungry kid, just emailing and calling and trying to find a way, and found one person who gave me an opportunity, and then that person loved what I did, got along great, helped me out, helped me get another opportunity. And before you know it, I was doing halftime shows. And that first season I did 15 halftime shows for 12 different teams. So it's kind of rare that a team brings you in twice, but the Mavs brought me in twice that first season, and the Bulls brought me in 3 times that first season.
Oh, wow.
And then that was the year that I actually did AGT. But, a lot of people are like, oh, you got to do the halftime shows because of AGT. I actually had already done, by the time AGT came out, I already had pretty much started the NBA circuit and had done all those, 15 games already. So if anything, it just helped boost that. And, from 15 that first year to I think it was 20 or so the next year to 25. And, now I'm probably around 40-ish games a season, right?
Wow.
Obviously before COVID.
Wow.
And, started doing college games as well, started doing some great people have given me opportunities to do some NHL games.
The ice must make it
say, how does that work on the ice?
So they actually, there's been 2 different versions. We've done some on the ice where they've put carpet on the ice and it's just a little bit cold. Mostly for little Percy, who he's like, oh my God, what's going on? But then also with the Colorado Avalanche, we did a game there, and there they had us kind of on an upper level area, and it was just like a secluded stage kind of area, and it was super cool there too. It was a lot of fun, and I wasn't big into watching hockey, but those experiences got me more into it and stuff. So the fans are super rowdy and awesome.
Yeah.
And so
Yes,
that's pretty cool. So and then from there, just been doing other TV shows. Man, we did the Gong Show. We won the Gong Show. We did MTV's Amazingness. We were able to win that as well. We went to do, in between then, we've done the Russia's version of the Got Talent. Like I said, Britain's Got Talent, which was a lot of fun. And then with Sonia, my girlfriend, we went to do Germany and we won Germany's Got Talent. So that was pretty damn awesome. It was nice to win one, because it was kind of like, all right, I'm kind of being this guy that's always here and not winning anything. But they were awesome there, man. And it had to be
getting to the point where the other acts saw you come in as a part of the season, like, yes, we got a chance, because he's here. He ain't gonna win.
He is always a loser on this show, so we're good. No, but the Germany one, man, it was opposite pressure, because the way they do it there, the final is live voting as the show is airing.
Oh.
And so there was I think, let's just say I think there was 12 acts, and we were 6th in the order. And by the end of the 4th act, they had a little like break and they were like, all right, let's look at where the voting is at now. And we were already in second place and we hadn't even gone on yet.
That seems like a flawed system.
And I was like, what is going on? And I guess like people just fell in love with the audition so much that we had that we were like favorites. And, you know, we obviously haven't had that before. And so that was like the same, like I said, I'm not good at these situations, even though you would think someone with the experience that I have would be. But, you know, same thing. Now I was like, oh my God, if you mess this up, you know, like I was like, don't like mess your tricks up. And by that I mean my stuff, because I've always known like Scooby and Percy and hopefully Milo, but they're always like clutch, man. Like they always come through. Like that's what I was getting at earlier, real quick. That quarterfinals performance, Scooby was such the performer that like he already was getting a little bit older, and so his little handstand walk that he does at the end to get into the bin, he like wasn't really doing that anymore. And so, but in that AGT performance, I don't know if it's that he felt my nerves, he freaking nailed it, and he like did it so good, and it was like, it's like, oh man, he knows. Like it was like crazy.
He's got a sense for the moment.
Yeah. So, you know, it was super. So they're super clutch. So it's more about me being like, all right, if you get up there, like the first trick I did in Germany was like this trick where I do a handstand on top of these blocks and then throw the blocks to the side and land on the sticks again. And the hardest part for that trick for me is actually getting my butt up on the blocks, because it's like a really far jump and to get your shoulders in. So I was like, you know, like, don't mess this up, man. If you get up there and you can't get your butt up on the first trick, like that's super embarrassing. And then like, you know, in my head, I'm like, you're going to cost yourself, like the people, you know, so it was just pressure like that. But yeah, so the Germany thing was great. And like I said, we just went to Italy and we were finalists there. You know, didn't win that one, but that one also, like I said, we ended up using both dogs, and not my favorite thing to do, but traveling has been a joy. And especially now, I mean, maybe more on the personal side, but now that I'm like in a, you know, very serious relationship, you know, the traveling has been just awesome, being able to travel together and have her be a part of those performances with me.
Does she perform with you?
No. So actually, she's my assistant when we travel. You know, she's there with the pups and everything while I'm over there setting things up, and you know, she takes great care of them. And and you know, she's just been awesome. And she's not from a performing family, she's not you know, a performer. And so you know, sometimes I think that's why we've been able to vibe so well. I mean, not to get into dating history, but I like it's just one of those things that I've always for some reason never really like gone with the performers in a sense of like being in relationships like that, because I just feel like in the performing world, that is kind of everything that consumes you, you know? And for me, like I said, my passion is like basketball, which has nothing to do with like circus or performing. And so like, I would rather drive 2 hours to see like my Raptors play a basketball game than to see like a circus show.
Sure.
And to a lot of people, that's like, geez, like, you know, it's probably rude or however they may see it, but it's just like, that's just, I love that, you know, like, it's just my love, my hobby. And so, you know, it's nice to kind of have that. I love going to the movies, to the movie theaters, and, you know, doing things that are like outside of the performing world. And so it's nice to be able to share those things with her.
Awesome. Jay, you got anything else?
Man, I don't know. You've been over all of it. We didn't really get deep into your champions experience, but is there anything that's worth sharing from AGT champions?
I mean, I will say champions at first, I didn't like the idea of like the leather jacket and all this and the music. But same thing, like I said, sometimes you just got to trust. And I was like, all right, I mean, if you guys think that this music, it's not really my personality.
Right.
And, you know, it's not really like what I'm, you know, I don't think I own a leather jacket. That's not my style. But then, you know, like my girlfriend would be like, wow, you look really hot. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, you know what? Like,
let's go get a leather jacket then.
Not quite, because I'm still not that guy, you know, but I'm just kind of like, nah, it looked good though, you know, and I'm like, the music fit really good. And I actually really love that performance. And that, I mean, in a way, like I felt really good about that performance. So, I mean, kind of probably a little surprised, I guess, that we didn't get through, but everyone that did get through, I felt deserved and was awesome. So I wasn't like, but that was, you know, it was good. I mean, you know, if there's anything else to add, it's just that sometimes, like I said, I do think that it's tough for variety acts. So that's why when a variety act wins, or when a variety act, you know, gets pretty far, it's always like, to me, I'm like, dang, like, you know, more credit to you, because there's, I do genuinely think that there's an added hurdle for variety acts. You know, in the champions one, you know, when I did that trick with the blocks that I'm talking about, and you know, people don't notice it, but the little lift that moved me up, like it moved a lot, like, but you can't really tell. And what's a lot to a person balancing on their hands on top of blocks upside down is different than moving a lot to your eyes. And so the smallest of movements to me was like a whole lot. So, that was one of those tricks too, where I was like nervous for that trick, and I was just like, man, like, I just hope that, like I get this trick. And if I get that trick, I'll feel pretty good. And, so just a lot of little behind the scenes details like that I think, people don't it's not their fault. It's just not obvious, and no one really says it, and they don't really know it. And so I wish sometimes that there was a way to show that a little bit more. But overall, man, we are on an AGT podcast, and the reality of it is it's one of those things that I am very, very grateful for it, because not just for me, it's giving great careers to so many other performers. Right. I'm assuming most of them would admit it, but even if they won't, I'll say it. I think it's a great platform. I'm super happy. Even just look around Vegas, like, Piff, who I've done a little skit with, is out here. Matt Franco is out here. Shin Lim is out here. We are out here on the show. So,
have you had an opportunity to work with Mr. Piffles then?
Yeah, we did actually a little skit with him and Mr. Piffles, and it was pretty funny. It was he was on some show. I forget what the show was. It was on TBS. It was like Tournament of Funny or something like this. Yeah, and he was on there, and we did a skit with him on there. It was really funny. But yeah, it was just a great time. And AGT is just a great platform. And nowadays, it's even awesome to see other shows like the Go Big show allowing more opportunities for performers. And the TV world is fun. There's a lot of hurry up and wait, as they say. But that does happen, and you're there sometimes the whole day. But it's a great platform. It's a great experience looking back on it. It's stressful in the times, but when it's all said and done, you look back and you're like, man, like right now that I'm sitting with you guys, chatting with you guys, I'm like, man, that was so much fun. And that was like I'm glad it went the way it went. And, it's just great memories, man. Good times.
I'm really thankful for you kind of sharing all these memories with us, and giving us a little peek behind the scenes, and getting an opportunity to know who you are and what you do. So that's been a lot of fun. My takeaway is I'm just thoroughly impressed by your work ethic, and how you talked about your brain says, but you should probably do another mile, but you need to do that.
Just 1 mile, just a little mile.
And I think it's that little bit more that makes you a world-class performer, and not a street performer, not just another guy who has been. So,
well, thank you guys, because that's very humbling to hear that. And I appreciate that. It's it's nice sometimes to let it out. I've had, like, I'm not kidding you, true story. Like right before we went to Italy, same mindset, man. You're preparing for the final in Italy. I'm running, and I'm like, let's do 4 miles today. And then at the end of the day, it's 6 miles. And then I started crying. I'm not even kidding, because you're like, man, nobody sees this, Right. And that's just the kind of, that's where you kind of have those moments with yourself when you're like, man, you know what? Nobody sees this, but like I see it. And sometimes it's nice to have, like, other people just appreciate it, because it can go a long way in making it feel like, no, it's worth it. Because you can, everybody has those moments of self-doubt, and man, why am I doing this? And even the whole, I'm sure you got everybody. I don't think there's anybody in this world that probably wasn't affected by COVID one way or another, to find a motivation. Like right now, we just started back up on the show. We were on a show called Opium on the Strip. Obviously that ended with COVID, shut down, and the same company called us up to go on a different show that's starting out. We're starting May 5th, and we started rehearsals last week, and our act is ready. We had rehearsals, and the director was like, yeah, I think you guys are ready. Maybe this next week you can come in if you guys want to practice, but I'm going to focus on some other stuff. And, that's that moment of like, man, like, you know what? We found the motivation to stay in shape, found the motivation to, keep at it, and, keep working and practicing, and, like, you could say, put it that way, running that extra mile. And so it's super, super rewarding sometimes. But when you're in it and you're like an athlete, when you're in the middle of your career, it's not really kind of the norm and easy to you don't look back until you're kind of done with something to look back to. And so having those reminders and those nice words that you said is appreciated, man. Thank you.
Yeah. You go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, I got a couple of things before we kind of wrap this up. Do you watch this? Do you still watch the show, or do you watch the show at all?
So I've watched it when I've had some friends on it, like Brett Laudermilk, who was just on it. He was on
Brett.
Yeah.
So he was on the same show as me at Opium here in Vegas. So he'd been here for, with me on that show the past 2 years before COVID. And so, people are like, oh, Brett's on tonight. And you're like, oh yeah, let me check it out, but it's one of those, I have a friend who played in the NFL. And the funny thing is I asked them, I was like, hey, so
was it John Dornbos?
No, but
Okay.
Cool guy though. Great story, by the way. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh,
we want to hear that. Okay.
No, I don't. I'm saying his story.
His story. Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I thought you had a story. Okay.
No, but here is a funny story. I'll make this one quick. Out and about here in Vegas one night, and I'm like at some bar, and I'm like, man, I recognize this dude. Who is this dude? I'm like, you know what? I think I know who it is. His name's David Morgan, and he played tight end with the Vikings. And I'm a big Vikings fan. So I go up to him and I'm like, hey, I was just like, dude, you're David Morgan, right? Or I was like a big fan. And he was like, what? I'm like, you're David Morgan, right? And he's like, who's that? And I'm like, bro, you're David Morgan. Like, I'm a Vikings fan. And he was like, they had just played a Thursday night game in LA against the Rams. So I was like, this makes total sense. They're like in the mid bye week. And he was just kind of like, he was like, oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. And I was like joking, because obviously it was their days off. And he was like, oh, but it's nice to meet you. I was like, oh, dude. I was like, man, awesome to meet you. I'm a big time Vikings fan. He's like, I appreciate you recognizing me. I was like, yeah, for sure, man. I was like, well, I'm here on the show actually it's called Opium if you ever want to come by. And I was like, dude. And he's like, oh, well, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I do a handstand act with a Chihuahua. And which is kind of my line because it sounds like a joke. But
and he's like, yeah, totally. Yeah. He was one of those, another run-of-the-mill Chihuahua handstander.
Well, then he freaks out and he's like, no way, dude. He's like Scooby. And I was like, what? So then we had like a total bro out moment outside of like in the MGM because he's like, dude, Scooby, he's like, I voted for you guys. And like, he's like, I'm a big AGT fan. And I was like, what? So then we're over there, like, shaking hands, hugging it out. So then he's like, dude, I fly out tomorrow. Like, I'm here for like a bachelor party. He's like, here, take my number down. He's like, if you come to Minnesota, or I was like, yeah, actually, because I had already like bought my tickets to go to Minnesota with my brother to go to a Packers Vikings game. He was like, dude, let me know. I'll hook you guys up. And sure enough, 2 months later, we went out there and he was amazing. Him and his family and his now bride were awesome.
Wow.
And they got me and my brother field passes. He picked us up in his truck from the hotel and brought us in like the player entrance way. And my brother was, probably 19 at the time. And it was just so cool and super nice. And for once in a while we'll text, I'm going to let him know that I shouted him out on here too. So he checks out the pod.
Awesome.
But cool story. But anyway, that was a cool story that comes to the fact that I was like, oh, like the day of the game, I was like, did you watch all the games today? And he was just like, kind of like, no, like, we just were focusing on this game and kind of work. And I was like very surprised because I would assume every NFL player is just sitting there on Sunday ticket all day when they're not playing, watching the games.
Right.
But in reality, it's like, this is work and I do this all day, every day. So,
right.
And it's kind of the same. I mean, I'll catch the show here and there, but it's not like I'm, my parents are more of the type of like every Tuesday tune in, but a lot of the times Tuesdays is my day off. So,
sure.
We'll be like, hey, babe, you want to go to dinner, and Tuesday's the day off. So we'll go to dinner, and then
sure.
Maybe if something happens, I'll catch it on YouTube, but it's not as like, scheduled to watch all the time.
Sure.
So my other question is, on your champion season, there was also the Russian bar.
Yeah,
Sandu,
yes, yeah.
So one of the things that we always talk about is when they were on their regular season, they completely went off script and played the piano upside down. So they didn't even do a Russian bar. And I was just wondering, in any of your performance, did you ever think about going completely off script and doing something completely different?
I did think about that. It was that
Was it a piano upside down?
it was not.
No,
It was
okay.
it was me upside down on the piano. I'm just kidding. No, but that semifinals performance, because like I said, I was pretty much out of handstand stuff at that point,
Yep.
and I only had 2 weeks. I pretty much pitched it to them where I was like, hey, I do Russian swing, which is, this thing I was doing at the circus program the year before. I was like, I could pick that up. I do pretty badass tricks on that. And I was like, I do pretty awesome tricks that I think could definitely be awesome. People would be like, whoa, you're a hand balancer, but you just did a triple somersault. Like, we didn't expect this, but I think because of the logistics and the fact that I was going to need someone else to be in the act to be pushing me or something, it ended up not happening. But I really wanted to do that because, I thought that was also, a triple somersault is no joke. Even professionals at that act do those tricks. So I was like, this is, I could do this. And this kind of, if the whole idea is like, can they put on a show in Vegas? I was like, this is the perfect example of me being able to be an acrobat and do completely different things. But then I just fell asleep watching Top 10.
would Scooby have gone for that?
No, but Scooby would have still been a part of it after, I would have done a little bit of everything, but Scooby maybe would have been the pusher.
Yeah. So, well, I know I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you want to plug, whether social media or anything you're doing now you want people to know about?
Well, our social media is at CA Stoinev. So CASTOINEV. Since this will be up on YouTube, I'll plug my YouTube channel that I've been trying to work on, and it's a sports YouTube channel actually. So if you're into football and basketball, I kind of have my own show there. And if either of you guys are sports fans and want to join me on it, feel free. I kind of like talking to other people more. It's been more fun that way. But I've been, pumping out episodes on that, sports related. But and other than that, just social media. We're on there. We're posting stuff and. If you ever come out in Vegas, for the time being, we'll be performing on the show called Atomic Saloon. It's at the Venetian, and we start May 5th. So we're super excited for that. And halftime shows. We're starting to get back to those too. So I'm super pumped.
You got any coming up? Any halftime shows coming up?
Yeah, super exciting. So actually this Sunday, we're going to San Francisco for a Warriors game. And then we're getting on a red eye to get to Orlando for a Monday game in Orlando. So
for the Raptors or for the Magic?
No, for the Magic. Yeah, the Raptors are in Tampa, but they're not. I think
they're in Tampa.
They're going to finish the season without entertainment.
I didn't even know the Magic was still a team. Are they still a team?
They are still a team. Yeah. They're struggling a little bit, but
Who since you do sports page, who do you think is going to win the title? Then who's the favorite for you?
It's hard to pick against Brooklyn because I think unfortunately those guys can turn the switch on. But I'm not rooting for Brooklyn because I don't want to see that. I'd rather see like Philly or Milwaukee, a team that's done this longer and stayed together longer. But it's hard, man. Those guys are,
I'd love to see Phoenix pull it off.
Oh,
I think that'd be a cool team to win it. But
I would like to see Phoenix. But
do you do any halftimes at G League games?
I have done a few. I have done a few for G League games.
Well, if you're going to be anywhere close to Des Moines, we're the Des Moines G League team would be my best chance.
Is there a college there?
There's a few.
Is Iowa there?
Iowa,
like University of Iowa, but that's Iowa City.
Iowa City is University of Iowa. Ames is just north of Des Moines. Is Iowa State.
Okay, because we've done University of Iowa. We've done games there.
Have you?
But
okay.
Yeah.
So you'll do college too, of course.
Oh yeah, college too. So hopefully this next season things kind of get back to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. We always really enjoy when we can get people who bet on the show. We sit and talk a lot about the show as if we know what it's like, but we don't get to go through the fourth wall just by watching it and having you guys come on and tell us about it. I know is a lot of fun. Anything else you guys have?
I
No,
don't have anything else. So
I'll
Jay, if
say,
you want to give out our business.
Christian, I appreciate your time, commenter. I appreciate you having some good questions and walking us through this. Cody, always great job producing and being a part of this. But Christian, again, we definitely appreciate all of your input and all of your time on this. If you want to reach out to Christian, it's CA Stoinev on all the socials for him. We're at AGT Time Pod. Rate, review, subscribe. That's where you can talk to us. And we appreciate all of our listeners. And I will remind you all to stay safe. Thanks.
Have a good night.